Hey guys, it's Heath here again with the Holden Torana behind me. A couple of months ago I did a video showing how to do the fitment for nice wide front wheels on a flared Torana. I want to do the same for a rear of a Torana. So it's a little bit more metal work probably on the rear than the front. The front was very easy in that respect, but the design and the kind of real estate that you need is a bit more simple in that the wheel is not steering around, it's just going directly up and down. So it's a more simple kind of motion path and easy to work out where it's going to go. So we'll go to the rear. We've got this thing set up so it'll run a 345 tyre, so like the rear tyre of a F40 Ferrari. That'll just fit in there. I don't run wheels and tyres that are quite that wide. I've got 12 inch, so 17 by 12 with like a 285/40 on those. And they're Mickey. You could go wider, no problem. I've got like future-proofness with the way that I've done it. So yeah, it's more kind of welding intense and it's not particularly complicated. If you've got the car on a rotisserie or something, it's an absolute piece of piss. It's a bit of a no-brainer. It's like a couple of days work at the most and you'll just have no clearance issues at all, even if you want to have the car low with shitloads of rubber and you still want to have like a decent amount of travel and stuff as well. So it's just totally common. Every Torana seems to have this scraping problem in the rear, and people are like making the cars look like shit, like jacking them up at the back with standard springs and stuff so that they can have passengers in the back. It's just the worst fucking solution. Mine's sweet. Mine's nice and low, great fitment, and plenty of room to move as well. So I'll start interrogating the back with you. Hold on. We're over at the rear left corner of the car with the wheel off. It's on the hoist, so it's really nice and easy to access. And we'll have a look around. So the flare that you see on it, that is a standard A9X Torana flare. It's not one of those widened ones that they make. I haven't used the widened ones. I don't know too much about them. I don't know if they change that angle or not, but they definitely make it kind of deeper there. So I'm not sure if you have to move the bolts up or whether it makes the car want to sit a bit taller at the back and tuck the tyre. I'm not sure. Anyway, this is just a standard one and I don't really see too much merit in those like wider ones, because how much rubber are you going to buy? You're not going to buy something that's wider than a 345. So yeah, I don't really see too much merit in that. But anyway, that's what I've used. It's just the standard kind of deal. I've got some stainless headed button head bolts and cap heads around there. Everything uses nutserts into the original steel bodywork, and I've cut it. Of course, I've cut the arch away. So that there is original. That's, you can stick your finger behind there. That's just the original sheet metal. And then as it goes up, it becomes a handmade thing. And I'll get the light so you can actually see there's a bit of a weld there that I haven't fully ground down. You can see that kind of angled bit of weld. That is a joiner piece. So at the bottom half, it's the original lip. Then there's a bit that I've welded in there, like a triangle piece there. And this here, that panel that comes across and then continues along there, that is a strip of metal that I've just bent up, like a ribbon of steel that I've bent up and welded in. So I've welded it, of course, on the inside. I just ran the TIG around the whole thing, and once again, we've got a joiner kind of thing there. So I put my finger behind and then the finger gets pushed out because the metal ends up becoming one piece. The lip goes away because it all just becomes a kind of almost boxed in section. So that's what you need to do. You cut it up as close as you can to those bolts. See where those threads are? The nutserts are fucking right next to the weld, right? It's like a couple of millimeters away. That is how you have to do this stuff. Just at the rear, it gets further away because it doesn't matter, but at the top, it needs to be super tight, super close. Look, I've cheated a little bit here. I've got a bit of touch-up paint that I've just put on there. That's because I drove it without bump stops in it once. But I can assure you, the way that it is, it can be low as hell with passengers in the back and all that stuff. You put it on the racetrack like that, it'll still be fine. I've extended the bump stops a bit So this here, that like bit of steel I welded in there, it's just a bit of round tube that lifts the bump stop up, I would say about 40 millimeters or so from the standard location. And that is necessary, and a standard A9X actually had the same thing. And yeah, I would recommend that to anybody, but the most important thing to do first is, of course, get enough clearance, and then take the springs out, jack the car up on the bump stops with no springs in it, and see how far it goes. So that'll tell you how big you do your bump stops. Some of the other metalwork changes would be here, the spring perch. I'll see if I can prop that light up a bit. So this spring perch looks pretty standard. It does have a standard type spring in it. It is actually a custom spring I had made. It's a little bit smaller in diameter. I think a standard one is okay though. I just went a little bit smaller because there was no harm in doing it. But this here, I've actually cut into there, and I've kind of closed, like cut and shut that a little bit. If you were to look from underneath, I don't imagine you'd really see what I've done. Maybe there's like a little bit of a nick in the metalwork, but barely. I've hidden it pretty well. So I've just kind of closed in the taper of that spring perch because it does stand and it kind of sticks out a little bit more. And if you have a wheel with a lot of backspace, or you shorten the diff enough, the inner lip of, like the inner barrel of that wheel can actually touch that. Another thing in the same vein is, of course, where the shocks sit. So the shocks on my car are very much vertical, and originally they sit more like out there and they taper in. So you need to look at what kind of brake setup and stuff you have, as far as, maybe you want to do that anyway for your brake clearance, but in my case I did it for wheel clearance. So I made them perfectly up and down, and it results in them being reasonably tight against the bodywork in that little shroud, but doesn't have any clearance problems. Mine just have a rubber one, but I think I tried a steel kind of dust coat one, like a standard, Coney or Petters or whatever, and they were fine. These ones are bigger body shocks. These are bigger than most cars would have. These are Shockworks, big diameter shocks, like a bit more serious than most cars would have, and they clear fine. All of that structure there is standard. The other thing that's more heavily modified, which is really, really common, whether you're flaring or not, is the modification here. So this is basically, if we're looking across like that, this is basically where the back of the wheel is going to go in and it's going to turn the corner. So the tyre is going to turn the corner in that kind of range, that kind of space. And normally there's a profile in the wheel tub. See this profile here. It's like a pinch welded thing that's maybe 20 millimeters off the chassis rail. Here at the back, in this specific location where the wheel is gonna be, I've stretched the material out, I've gotten rid of that gap, and I've made it quite flush. So I'll insert some photos that show the procedure for doing that, but that's really a recommended thing. Even if you have an unflared Torana and you're trying to kind of mini tub your car, that's the way you do it. So the method was get in there with the angle grinder, cut out like a kind of moon shape, I guess, and then belt the shit out of all that area, and you're stretching it out. You're literally just making the material longer in that area, and you want to carry it up into a bit of height. But yeah, this whole area is kind of, a bit more concave than it was originally, and the metal is longer. And as I've stretched it out, I've just tack as I go along, and then I've nicely welded it up, and it's strong and sealed, and probably looks better than they did originally anyway. I don't think there's much else to talk about here. It's not a super complicated procedure, but certainly makes the car a lot more enjoyable to be around and makes it look a lot better as well. Cheers, I hope you found that informative. Bye for now.